It looks like Andrew, as soon as he came in the door, put out his homework on his desk. I really appreciate that. Looks like Lewis has done the same thing, so it's Christian. Okay, 30 seconds remaining. All right, guys, welcome back. Yeah, you're ready. So something that I want to start, so this is the beginning of the week, so I'm going to talk about books that I added to the library this weekend. So, number 1, Ender's Game. This book is about, in the future, there's threat of an alien attack. So they test all of the children in the world to see who's good at things like video games and problem solving. They take all of those that are the best when they're about 6 or 7, send them up into space to train them to be army generals. Really, really good. If you want to check it out, I have that. I have another book called I Am Legend, which they turned into a movie. It's about vampires. The movie, I would say, I give it a C. The book, A+. The book is way scarier and has a totally different ending. So if you're interested, I have that. This book right here, after school, this book right here is called A Dirty Job. It is about a little girl who's reincarnated into death. You know, tall guy, kills people. She doesn't understand that she's death, so when she is like walking around and like playing games, and she points at people, she accidentally kills them. She doesn't know that she's death. It's really funny and it's really silly. It's told from the dad's perspective. And then finally, I have this book that's a history of the CIA. I'm a huge military intelligence nerd. I absolutely positively love foreign policy. So this is a really cool book to check out. And it talks a lot about missions that we did during the 60s and 70s. Like, raise your hand if you've heard the movie Argo. Right? That's in this book as well. So if you're interested, this would be a great book to check out. Okay, cool. Let's move on. So today we're going to outline how invasions shaped medieval Europe. And we're going to use sequencing to create a concept map. Okay? Raise your hand if you've ever heard of a concept map before. Okay, a few of you. Raise your hand if you've ever heard of mapping while you're reading. No, that one seems, maybe we got one over here, that one seems kind of new. I'm going to teach you how to do something today that's going to be kind of difficult, but you're going to really like it because it means you have to actively read less. There we go, I can have you there. Actively read less, there it is. And it's going to be a way of showing information in new ways that we're going to talk about a little bit later. But before we do that, let's start on a kind of an unrelated note. So how does a detective go about solving a case? How does a detective go about solving a case? Johnny?
So the detective solves a case by thinking of all the possibilities that like the answer to, and they use evidence to cross out like all the other possibilities until they found one that all the evidence leads up to.
Okay, so I heard a lot of things there. One, I heard that they use evidence, which is absolutely right. And then I also heard that they like use this evidence in order to kind of make maybe judgments. Okay, cool. Jose?
They question things
They question things, and why would that help them solve a case?
because it would give them more answers about what happened and
Okay, so they question more things, which should give them more answers. So by asking more questions, we are getting what?
more knowledge.
More knowledge and more answers. Cool. Alba?
They actually go investigate where the crime or thing took place
Okay.
to see if they could get any evidence, like they said, to answer questions.
Okay, so evidence kind of helps us answer questions, right? So they go to the scene in order to get this. Habakkuk?
They need sources, like they use sources, people like sort of like rats, I guess.
Okay, so they need like sources, right? So they're not just using clues that they find, they're also asking other people. Okay, cool, I like that. Christian?
I said detectives solve cases by examining clues over and over to make sure that they don't miss something important.
I like that. So when they're examining something, they don't just look at it once, they look at it over and over and over. Morgan?
They like recreate it to see like the possible height and weight for it.
Okay, so they kind of maybe do some tests in order to figure it out. Okay, cool. Last comment, Jasmine?
Well, I feel like they like research more about this person, like who they are, what they do, and make their relationship towards like family members or people.
So they do some research to kind of figure out a little bit more about what's going on. So that maybe not necessarily what's there, but they look for other things. Okay, every single thing that you talked about is what you should be doing when you're reading nonfiction. Okay, I know, I always have to bring it back to reading. I'm always a buzzkill, always bring it back to reading. Okay, so that's what you gotta do when you're reading nonfiction. So let's take a step back. What is nonfiction? Yeah, what is it? It's something that's real, right? So, Twilight. Fiction? Nonfiction. Fiction. Fiction, that is not nonfiction, friend. You are not running around with vampires and werewolves. Alright, this book right here. Fiction or non-fiction? Somebody raise their hand and tell me. Fiction or non-fiction? Isaiah.
Non-fiction.
How is this non-fiction?
Because it's actually events that happened in history.
Right, they are actual events that happened in history. This one, fiction or non-fiction? Eli. Fiction, and how is this one fiction?
Because it's a made-up story.
Yeah, it's a made-up story, absolutely. So reading nonfiction, we want to read like a detective. Okay, so let's kind of go back through some comments. Okay, somebody said we need to find evidence. When you're looking through a text, how do you find evidence? How do you find evidence when you're looking for text? Jovan?
Like finding stuff that relates to your main idea.
Okay, so finding things that relate to your main idea. I'm sorry, I cut you off. What was your second part? Okay, so you're finding stuff that relate to your main idea. Johnny?